Welcome back to episode 13 of the Charged Up Show. In this episode, we talked to Garrett McFadden. He was drafted in the OHL in April 2013 as a defenseman for the Guelph Storm, which was arguably the best year's team in OHL history. During that season, Garrett was recognized with the Storm's Humanitarian of the Year award, which he would earn 3 times with the teams for his movement called the McFadden Movement 27. The McFadden Movement is a non-profit organization that strives to change, help, and develop mental health among athletes. Garrett is currently playing for Acadia University, where he hopes to finish his education and shoot for pro. Garrett has accomplished so much more that we'll leave for the rest of the podcast. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the podcast, Garrett McFadden. And first of all, we all want to congratulate you on the past success of the MM27 tournament online, raising $2,078. I have written down exactly. What was it like taking that tournament online?
It was different for sure. I mean, for me, not like a huge Xbox or video games guy. So I think the last NHL I bought was like maybe 17 or 16. So bit of an adjustment, but my younger brother plays a lot, so he helped out a bit with kind of trying to figure out how exactly to run the thing. And but it was good, I guess. I mean, for me, it's a cool way to raise money and bring a lot of people together. And I guess you kind of talk to a few people throughout the day and catch up with some old buddies and old teammates and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. And I think it all went pretty smoothly, and we're pretty happy with the way it went. And then for it to raise $2,000 too was obviously the cherry on top.
For sure. Yeah. I just kind of want to congratulate you, and we'll put the link in the description, obviously at McFaddensMovement.com, but I'm just reading here, you raised $47,000 to mental health resources in the last 3 years. So that's a big number. That's like crazy.
We'll definitely get into some of that after, because that's a huge conversation to have. But yeah, just backing on that too. That's huge congratulations for there.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, and that's great what you're doing for the community, and love it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a cool ride. I think from when we started, I guess like 4 years ago now. Just hovering around $50,000 is awesome. And we want to keep obviously growing things and raising more and more money. I think as I would even say since 4 years ago, there's even more foundations and stuff like that geared towards raising money for mental health. So
yeah,
to see that is cool too. Obviously, to do it within your own foundation is nice, but just to see sort of a lot more people and a lot more involvement and stuff like that going towards mental health is really cool too.
So typically we work in a way where we ask people to tell their careers and go in order. But for you, I think it might be beneficial for all the listeners to kind of go in reverse and talk about the current. And I could be wrong, because it's a bit confusing looking at U Sports online. It's not really easy.
Yeah.
But you guys were supposed to host the championship, right? So what was it like dealing with that, with the cancellation? Obviously, that must have been pretty heartbreaking. And what happened there, and how did you guys deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's, to be honest, it started like 2 years ago, because they tell you like the bid for nationals starts 2 years prior to when you host. So when I got recruited to Acadia, part of a big reason why I came to the school was because we had 1 year to settle in, and then the next year we were hosting nationals. So it was a big reason why I chose to come to Wolfville and go to Acadia and play there. So I guess having that in the back of my mind for like the last 2 years, and then you kind of get to the event and you're gearing up for it all year. And we had a really good year and a bit of a letdown, I guess, not winning AUS championships, but sort of another chance to do something special at nationals. And then you're practicing, and I think the word is sort of spreading about coronavirus, and we're kind of taking, I guess, some precautions, but it didn't really seem like anything was going to happen. I think at that point there was still no confirmed cases in Nova Scotia, so and then we were at the rink watching the two games before on the Thursday night, and they happened, and I think everyone was pretty excited, and kind of got back to the hotel. It was like 10:30 at night, and they decided to cancel everything. So it was pretty, I guess, I don't know, hard news for us for sure. And I think at that point there's obviously a lot of questions that you're looking for answers, and nobody can can really explain how fast everything shut down, and sort of the way they went about it so quick. And it obviously disrupted more than just us, but the major junior seasons and minor hockey and everything like that. So yeah, it's honestly, it's weird. It's nothing like anything I've really experienced, and hopefully never really have to experience it again. But it's been weird. It still feels like we should be playing out the season.
For sure, yeah. It almost feels like fake. Like you almost don't want to believe it, but like it's happening everywhere. And I mean, I look at the stats pretty much every day. I don't want to like get consumed on all the stats, right? Because that's bad to do as well. But starting to clear things up a little bit in locally here. But how's things over there in Nova Scotia? Do you find things are opening up a little more? Is there still lots of cases there, or is it cleared up?
Yeah, it's not too bad here. Things are still pretty slow, but starting to kind of get into that phase one.
Yeah.
Sort of along the lines with what they're doing in Ontario. So there's obviously a lot less cases here. I think there's only like just over 1,000 confirmed during the whole pandemic, and then I don't know what Ontario would have, but a lot more for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's pretty much sounds the same in terms of, I guess, what I've experienced and what I've heard from buddies back home and stuff like that. So just kind of slowly, I don't know, try to get things back to normal and hope that something, kind of changes where we can start to live a normal life again.
Yeah, for sure.
So staying on the merit, like you're out in Nova Scotia, obviously, can you talk about, to our viewers who aren't really a lot of them aren't familiar with it, the difference in U Sport culture here out in the Maritimes, like UNB and obviously Acadia and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think just in terms of like our conference overall, I guess like being an overager and when I was in Guelph, and when I kind of started thinking, I guess, about where I wanted to go, if it wasn't going to be an immediate jump to pro, and if I had to go to school, sort of what conference would I want to go play in, and one that you stay competitive. And I think if you take, I'd say, the percentage of guys that are in our league, we have 7 teams, and you take the amount of guys that have played major junior, either 4 or 5 years, it's a lot higher than, say, the OUA. So I think that offers a pretty competitive aspect. And then along with that, there's, a lot of times guys, if they go and play pro for a year and decide to come back to school, oftentimes they'll end up in the AUS somewhere, whether it's UMB or SMU or Acadia and whatnot. So I'd say it's still, I would say, across U Sports, the hockey's still competitive and serious, but of the 3 conferences, I would say, in my opinion, the AUS is probably the most competitive and the strongest division in U Sports every year.
Yeah, so we got the lowdown. I think now it's important to go back to the beginning, and you grew up in Kincardine, if we're correct, and what was it like? That's not necessarily a hockey hotbed or anything, and how was it like getting noticed from there? And a lot of people think you need to play in Toronto and you need to play in the GTHL to get noticed, but I believe you were playing for Grey Bruce and you still end up going to Guelph. And what do you have to say about that? And what was it like growing up in Kincardine?
Yeah, it was unique for sure. I mean, I think I got my first taste of sort of AAA when I was in Pee-wee, and I was just playing in spring tournaments, but I never played AAA full time until I was in Bantam. So I guess, I don't know, for most people now, I guess that's really late. So, but I had a lot of good buddies, and we always had a good team in Kincardine, and I think we just liked being there, and I have two other siblings, so my parents were busy enough that a couple practices a week in Kincardine were about all they could handle, sort of. And I think obviously when it came time that junior hockey was something that I wanted to pursue, and hockey was something I wanted to kind of take the next step in, then AAA seemed right. But for us, it was like an hour to practices, and by the time I was in minor midget, we were getting home from school, having a bite to eat, doing some homework, and then getting in the car and not getting home till midnight. So, it was a lot, not only, I guess, just for me as a player, but for my parents to kind of do that too. So, I don't know. I think the 3 years that I played with AAA were, I guess, the right amount. And obviously I was lucky enough to, get drafted to Guelph and go and play there and kind of, have enough exposure, I guess, and where you're playing against other teams, and still going to Toronto for tournaments and stuff like that. It puts a bit more pressure to perform when you sort of know scouts are only at your games when you're in the city. They're not coming to Chesley, Ontario, and watching you play. So, that made things a little bit more of a challenge. But like I said, I was lucky enough to get noticed and go early enough and to Guelph, which was pretty awesome.
For sure, yeah.
And what was it like cracking that roster? Or going RFC, you talked about jumping Guelph. That was an amazing team. What was it like making that team as a 16-year-old?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was it was pretty wild year, I guess, for me. Like coming in as a first round pick, so you're sort of, I don't know, expected to make the team and sort of be a contributor right away. And my adjustment wasn't amazing, and I think I struggled a little bit just with getting up to speed of the game. And obviously it's sort of the first time in my life I was playing with guys who were 20 years old and knew what the league was all about. And it took me maybe a little bit longer to realize that. And then we obviously had a really good team, so you sort of fall back on the depth, and you're playing less and less every night. And then a couple trades at the deadline sort of put me on the outskirts of the lineup, and I was only getting in once every 2 or 3 games down the stretch. And then, kind of going through playoffs, we were rolling and we didn't have too many injuries. So I was in the stands, all playoffs, and watched every game from there as a 16-year-old. So it was obviously a cool accomplishment. Like, I love being in the OHL, and I thought it was really cool. And it was, it was obviously a dream of mine. And you kind of, at that age, you're looking across the league, and you're the youngest player on any roster, and there's only a few 16-year-olds on each team, so you feel pretty good about that. But then obviously it's hard coming from a minor midget team that you played all the time and you're relied on to kind of being an irrelevant factor of the game, and playing only a few shifts, and trying to kind of make sense of that and enjoy it at the same time was definitely an adjustment. But I think every 16-year-old kid sort of deals with that at some point in their first year, whether it's, for the first 10 games or the first 5 games for the lucky guys. And for some it's 40 games or it's a whole season. But, it was definitely something, I think about all the time, and I had a lot of fun being a 16-year-old in the OHL.
Yeah, that's always something I'm interested in talking to, like from the past podcast we had OHL players on. And how was like the transition or fit? Like, was there any experiences or people that kind of helped you in a way to kind of like be at home in Guelph, like, okay, this is where I'm at? Or was there any experiences to kind of loosen up yourself to see like I'm in the right spot? Or
yeah, I mean, like, there's so many different adjustments for me. It's moving into a home with billets and new high school and
Exactly.
all that, all the stuff outside of the rink that you're sort of dealing with. In terms of like at the rink, is just the game was so much faster, and you had to make decisions so much faster. And I think, when I was a minor midget, I'd carry the puck up the ice and skate around and kind of do what I wanted. And as soon as I got to the OHL, that just didn't happen anymore. And so it's sort of, I don't know, it was different for me because I like to rush the puck and I was sort of an offensive defenseman. And a lot of times when I was younger, it wasn't such a risky play to do a little bit too much. But when you start playing against better players, then you can't get away with making mistakes. Usually it ends up in the back of your net. So I think just getting used to that and getting used to doing it every night. Because, you go from playing a couple games on the weekend to, you're on a Tuesday night in Kitchener after you've been at school all day and, you're thinking about school the next day or homework or assignments or all this stuff. There's so many like little distractions that you sort of have to deal with. And, it's one of those things where there's tons of help and the coaches are there, the older guys are there for you and they're helping you, adjust to things. And obviously like your billets usually, 9 times out of 10 are huge in your adjustment to moving into the OHL and into a new city and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's kind of what you do as a player. People can only kind of give you so much until you adjust to things yourself. And there's some things that you kind of have to go through yourself and each guy goes through. But like I said, some guys, they get by a little bit faster than others, and others there's more of that adjustment period.
For sure, yeah.
What Nate talked about is we had Guelph Storm guys too. We've had McFarland on so far and Cooper Walker both from the Storm, and they both played junior B as 16-year-olds and hopped into Guelph at 17, and they talked about just getting used to the daily life of waking up, going to school, going right to the rink, working out, and how hard it can be, especially when they're young and they're not getting played crazy amount of time. Sometimes they're in the stands, and how tough that can be. But you obviously pushed through it and will slowly get into that later in your career and became success. But even being in the stands, did you still find how that you still gained a lot of experience and that really helped you in the future?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, like, I guess I sat out so many times that you kind of start to look for things that you can do, I guess, while you're not playing. And I used to go watch the games with Chris Heide, who was our assistant general manager my first year, and then moved on to Manchester, was assistant coach in the AHL, and then a couple of years ago was an assistant coach for the Sabres. So, I'd go watch the game with him and sort of try and pick his mind and just have conversations about, what he saw out there and what guys on our team, he liked the certain things that they did and to try and work on them in practice or, when I would get to play and stuff like that. So I think just, little things like that. I try to work with our sports psych guys and there's it's, you kind of, you're at the low point of your career and you're like, oh yeah, I need a sports psych guy. And obviously, it kind of goes like that for a lot of guys where, all of a sudden they're in a slump and it's like, oh, I need to talk to someone. I need someone. But I think that then taught me, even when I'm feeling good and playing good, that still, kind of working with the sports psych docs or, having conversations with coaching staff or whatever, just about improving little things in your game are never a bad thing. And even, if you have all the confidence in the world, there's still things that you can work on and stuff to get to the next level because you're only in junior and you kind of, you're pushing to make it to pro. So I guess just kind of keeping that in mind and kind of using little things like that, whether it's advice from coaches or anything or teammates and stuff. So try to do that as much as I could. And, maybe at 16, I felt like I did it a lot. Maybe I could have done it a bit more for sure. I'm sure every guy that goes through it would say that too. But, it's kind of one of those things. You're just a young, naive kid. You're learning something new every day. So it's some days it's harder, some days it's easier. So you deal with that on a day-to-day basis, I guess.
Yeah. I'm sure you grow up as a person, just being with the team and stuff like that's probably a main type of thing. And I don't want to jump too far onto this, but it says like you're named captain for 2 years. How was that feeling from, starting from the bottom and working your way up? Like how did you find like your worth ethic was different and like what did you put into it to become that? Was there any stories with that or?
Yeah, I mean, I think just For me, I don't know. I tried to work as hard as I could every day, and when things were tough, I just tried to stay positive as I could, and I kind of took that with me, I guess, for my whole career. And I had been through a lot with not playing as a 16-year-old, and then when I was 17, I broke my jaw and missed 10 games, and that was sort of my draft year, and whatever. And I dealt with all of that, I guess, in 2 years, and then my third year we were terrible, and so I guess just I'd sort of experienced a lot in 3 years, and I felt like I had a lot to give back to sort of the younger guys, and instead of waiting for them to come ask me stuff, trying to kind of provoke conversations to have with those guys that I remember as a 16-year-old having, and like feeling good after, or like feeling like it was good advice. So I don't know. I guess it was just a gradual thing. Like, you get comfortable within the organization, and for me, I was there for a long time. Like, I was there for 5 years, so I felt like I had a personal relationship with everyone within the organization, and obviously with all my teammates too. So I think that made the transition, I guess, to becoming captain and sort of taking on that responsibility a lot easier, just because I felt comfortable in that position, and I also felt like I knew where to lead guys and who to talk to, when certain stuff needed to get done. And I'd also learned from some great guys who came before me. Like McFadden was our captain in my 16-year-old year, like a second rounder to Toronto, and he was unbelievable. Probably one of the best guys in hockey. Just nice guy to be around. And then my second year was Jason Dickinson, so like first round pick of Dallas. Like, the guy is unbelievable, and just one of the best people I've ever met in hockey. Will just do anything for you. So I guess learning from those two guys as a young kid and sort of looking up to them, and sort of I guess thinking a little bit to the future, and sort of if I was the captain of this team, how would I want to be, and what things do they do right that I would want to try and do my best to do too. So those two guys were definitely big pillars in, I guess, the way I sort of saw myself as a captain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good story. Thanks for sharing that. And I just want to, you mentioned when you were 17, I believe you said you broke your jaw. Yeah, from what I read as well, the puck hit you in the face, and you had to get your mouth wired shut for, I think it was 6 weeks, I believe I read. That's a huge injury. Would you be able to talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, it was. I want to say, it was a Sunday afternoon game in Saginaw. So we were down there. I think there was a fight just before Phil Baltisberger. I forget who he fought. So, anyways, he got beat up and broke his nose. So our trainer was off with him back in the locker room, trying to fix his broken nose. And then I think it was probably 2 shifts later, Nick Mutry just cut across the blue line, just took a shot and deflected up off my stick, and then just hit me just underneath my jaw there. And I don't know, never really thought anything too much of it. Like, I was bleeding, I kind of went down and off the ice, and got into the locker room, and like the doctor checked me out, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you just have a couple of loose teeth, and your jaw's not broken or anything like that." So I stayed off. It was towards the end of the game, so I didn't go back out, and then got back on the bus and went back to Guelph, and I woke up the next morning and like had basically like a baseball coming off the side of my face, and it didn't look too great. And I went into the dentist to like get my teeth like glued back so that they weren't wiggling anymore. And I walked in, and the receptionist was like, "Oh yeah, we need to send you to Cambridge to like get some x-rays because you definitely have a broken jaw." So then it was like a CT scan and a couple pans is what they call them, the dental term for the x-ray, whatever. Couple of those, and it's like probably 9 o'clock at night, and I get these wires on my face. So yeah, it was like I want to say it was 3 weeks before the Christmas break. So then I was wired shut for for everything. I had to eat all my meals out of a blender basically, and I lost like 25 pounds. It was pretty unbelievable. It sucked.
That's crazy.
But yeah, at the same time, it was like it was a weird injury just because, I was still like okay physically, and besides my jaw being broken, and like it was pretty hard to breathe, I guess, because there wasn't too much room to breathe out of my mouth. I was going on the ice for practice like 2 weeks later, and like, still working out and stuff, but I wasn't allowed to play just because, whatever, I had wires stuck in my mouth. So just kind of waiting for like that 6 weeks to be up. And then, at the same time, like you're working out, but you're not able to like eat and replenish your body enough that, I was just dropping weight like crazy. And then at 6 weeks, it was like it was a Wednesday or a Thursday. I went in and had my last appointment. They cut my wires off, and then, everything felt normal. And then I was like 160 pounds. Say I was like down 25 pounds from my normal playing weight. And then the next night I played against whoever on Friday night at the Sleeman Center. It was like, it's just like a different world. Yeah. Honestly, I felt like a completely different human. He could turn me sideways and I'd like disappear or something. I don't know. But anyways, it was pretty tough, weird injury, I guess. Like not one that is very common. So there weren't too many guys like, oh yeah, that guy broke my jaw. That happened to me. Like, oh, here's what I did. It was kind of like, I was like forging my own path. Like, oh, how many, scoops of frozen yogurt can I put in this 1,000 calorie shake? And like, I don't know. I still hate soup now because I ate so much soup while I had a broken jaw. So It's one of those things. Like when I think back to it, it was pretty crazy time in my life for sure. But I don't know. It was, it was, I don't know. It was weird. It was a lot of fun sometimes, but it was also tough.
Yeah.
I'd like to jump back actually to, I had this written down and I was looking forward to talking about this, is playing, even though you were scratched a lot of the time in the playoffs in that 16-year-old year, what was it like playing with like Matt Finn and Fabry? And like, I remember watching Matt Finn as the captain, and he was unreal back in the OHL. What was it like learning from him as a defenseman, obviously? And then playing with the forwards like McGinn and Fabry and Kosmachuk.
Yeah.
I think how you say it. But.
Yeah, it was, I mean, for me, like, I remember coming in as a 16-year-old, like, to camp. Well, I hadn't even turned 16 yet, so I'm a week shy of my 16th birthday, so I just feel like, an infant compared to all these guys. And, like, I remember there was a practice before our first ice session of the day, and I was watching Scott Kosmachuk, like, go down and rip the puck. And like this guy had the hardest shot I've ever seen. And I don't know, it was just like that. At that point I was like, oh my God, like these guys are all unreal. And just, I think like that season was just like, I don't know. There's so many good players that we had on our team that year, like Kirby Reichel and Nick Ebert, Zach Leslie, Ben Harper, obviously Finner, Cos, Brock McGinn, Jason Dickinson, Fabs. Like our lineup was so stacked. It was just like crazy. Like every night, I don't know, it was a pretty unbelievable team to watch. And like these guys could just like, they just got it done always. And like, if Fabs was having an off night, then like, Ginner would put up like a hat trick and 2 assists. Like it was just like somebody had it every night. And like, it was just, it was pretty cool to watch. Like, I don't know, it was a weird feeling just going into every rink, and I wasn't really playing, but just knowing like, oh man, if we lose tonight, that's such an upset. And like when we would lose, the guys would be pissed. And there were so many times where like we were down going into the third, and everyone, the guys in the room were just like, we're not losing tonight, and they go out and score like 4 or 5 in the third and win the game. Like it was just, I don't know, it was such a cool group. It sucks that we didn't win the Mem Cup that year. But, I thought, we're kind of going to playoffs, and there was no way that we weren't winning the OHL. So it was pretty cool to be a part of, and definitely, I don't know, it has to be like one of the best junior hockey teams ever assembled for sure. Because the amount of guys on that team that, have gone on to have unreal NHL or pro careers is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think you're pretty spot on saying that was one of the best junior teams of all time. What was it like experiencing Memorial Cup, and then obviously that heartbreaking loss? I think Guelph was definitely the favorite to win. What was it like experiencing that? Maybe you weren't playing, but What was that like?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I think even though you're not playing, I still felt like I was part of it, and you kind of had your role, and um, there's kind of a group of three of us that were like the Black Aces. We kind of just go around and try and keep things light and give the guys something, I guess, to make fun of and whatever. So we, we were just we existed there, but it was it was tough. I mean, you go through the whole season and see how hard those guys worked and how good of a team we were, and just the fact that we didn't win it all sucks, and I know it probably still stings every guy who's a part of that season. And we had a really good tournament. Like we won 3 straight and got the bye right to the final, and it seemed like there was no way that anyone could beat us on a few days rest. And it happens. You run into a hot goalie, and I think that Samuelson kid had like 5 or 6 points that night, which was unbelievable. Just like a sick game. So it was pretty cool. Pretty cool tournament. Definitely unreal experience, and yeah, wish we could have won it all for sure.
And then you played 4 games with Laval after that whole Guelph experience. How was that, and was that what really led you to play for Acadia at the end?
Yeah, I signed an ATO after our series with Kitchener, so like at the end of my OHL career, and it was a really cool experience, like getting to make the jump to pro and kind of getting to see what that's all about, and obviously it's like I said, going from minor midget to the OHL was a step, and I think going from the O to the AHL is a huge step too. And it's just the guys that you can never take a shift off. And as you get older and more experienced in the OHL, there's maybe times where again you can sort of get away with mistakes, and you can do certain things out there, make certain plays that you can kind of escape from and not get in trouble for. And the biggest thing I notice in pro is if you make a mistake, it's in the back of your net like almost instantly. So it was a really cool experience, and one that I'm pretty thankful for. And I think it's one that I keep in the back of my mind. Just when I'm done at Acadia and I want to make the jump to pro, it's kind of nice to have 4 games and in your back pocket, and that sort of experience for sure. I wouldn't say like it entirely led to me going to Acadia. Like I still wanted to try and make the jump to pro, but obviously I didn't really get the right offer or the right kind of place to go to and play and start my pro career. So it just made more sense for me to go to school. And while I was playing in Guelph, I did a year at U of G too. Over my time, like just part time, I got 10 courses done. So if I could like come to Acadia and sort of fast track things and get it done in 3 years, then I'd still be pretty young, and then I could go make the transition to pro and also have a degree in my back pocket too.
Could you talk about then? It's pretty common now that you see people who finish their OHL careers, they take their schooling package, and the schooling hockey's obviously got a lot better in the last 15, 20 years, maybe even 10 years. It's got a lot better, and you see a lot of people going into pro. So I just want to pick your brain about behind that decision of let's go get 3 years done and get better, and then hopefully take a shot at full-time professional hockey.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, like the AUS is still really competitive hockey, and like there's still a lot of guys in that league who are trying to pursue pro and still take the game very seriously and stuff. So for me, I don't know, like the OHL scholarship opportunity is pretty awesome, and I guess to turn that down and make the jump to pro, and I don't know, it was one of those things where for me it felt like the right decision to just go and get my schooling done. And I've always cared about education and stuff like that. I think it's really important, and even like you see guys that have played pro for X amount of years, and they're retiring at like 35 or 36 or 37, or even if you play till you're 40, you're 42, it's like there's still a good 25 years of you doing something that an education would definitely help. help you pursue that and like help give you direction on what you want to do in your life after hockey. Because if if you just stop playing hockey or stop playing pro, and if you don't stay involved in the game, coaching or being a GM or a scout or whatever, and you want to kind of go work in the real world, then it's obviously important to have an education and kind of a bit of background on what it is you'd want to do or whatever. So I think for me, it's 3 years where I could kind of go, and like I said, going to Acadia was exciting just because we were supposed to host nationals and all that stuff. So it was a decision that I'm pretty happy about making, and I've had a lot of fun playing youth sports hockey. So I'll graduate next year and move on to pro, but I've had a great time so far, and I'm pretty excited to start next year too.
Yeah, that's wise to say about the education piece, because it's like obviously having one to go pro, but like afterwards, like you see so many like horror stories, even with like football players, like after their career, they're bankrupt, right? Like they have to start fresh, right? So I feel like it's always important to have that education piece behind you.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, for anyone, it's important too. And I also think it's not, it's important to like kind of know, I don't know, as a hockey player, if you're, making whatever amount of dollars, like you want to be smart about that too. So being educated and kind of knowing sort of what to do with your money or whatever, and kind of knowing that stuff also helps you too later in life. So
yeah.
I think obviously, yeah, like you said, guys kind of coming out of their careers and not really having anything else to do except for play a sport, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what's your major in, or what are you trying to get your degree in?
I'm in Bachelor of Business Administration.
Oh, cool. How do you find that? Was it a good course to take?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it so far. It's I don't know, it's pretty broad. Like you can, with a business degree, you can kind of work in whatever field you want. So, but like I said, it's nice to have in your back pocket. And if I want to, then, maybe one day go back to school and try and do like an MBA or something like that. And
take it to the next level.
Yeah, take to the next level. Maybe that's an option, but like I said, the goal for me now is to kind of get my degree and then start my pro career, and kind of, like I said, have, I guess, no regrets about leaving, sort of like a full ride scholarship in the dust, and just trying to play in the minors or whatever for however long.
Yeah. I think that was a really good whole wrap of your hockey career so far, and we appreciate you telling us all of that. But I think we should probably transition into the MM27, because that's a huge thing you're doing and a very honorable thing that you're doing. So we'd really like to kind of talk about it and basically how it all started and why you wanted to start it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, like I said, as a 16-year-old, I was like not really playing much, but I tried to like get involved in the community as much as I could, and like do other things outside of the rink to sort of distract me from the fact that I wasn't really playing too much. So, I enjoyed it. We were doing library visits and different events in the community, and I had a really good time and loved hanging out with the kids and stuff. So, as I got older and I was done in high school, we would do like school visits throughout the day, so all over like the Guelph and surrounding area community, and we go in and kind of hang out with the kids and do like a fun fit presentation, it was called, and I had a really good time with that. And then I think I was going into my fourth year, my first year as captain, and we were kind of it was Steph Karate who was running our public relations stuff back then. We were just kind of brainstorming ideas to like, I don't know, how could we make things better, or did anyone have any ideas about stuff they wanted to do in the community? And I kind of pitched the idea of something geared towards mental health, and then that's kind of where we started McFadden's Movement from. And we I don't know, we met a lot over the next couple months and sort of created an identity for the foundation and figured out what it was exactly that we wanted to do, and just focusing on like young athletes and young kids, and the importance of like understanding their mental health at a young age, just so they know how to handle themselves, when they get in situations where they're, dealing with anxiety or depression or anything like that. So just kind of like teaching them from a young age. And then also, like I said, like we want to, focus on younger athletes too, just because, it's hard dealing with adversity and stuff like that, and sort of knowing how to handle yourself when you get into those situations, and finding yourself in those tough points in your career. Just kind of knowing different things to do, and different coping mechanisms and stuff like that was really important. So yeah, we created that, and ever since we've just been adding small things or big ideas or whatever, and trying to put on different events and different stuff like that, like the video game tournament, or we've done road hockey tournaments in the past, but obviously had to cancel ours for this year. And so yeah, just, I don't know, trying to raise money and do what we can to promote mental wellness, and teach young kids about why mental health is important, and kind of go from there.
And would you say, going back a little bit to when you broke your jaw and you were in that situation, would you say that brought any inspiration to your movement? Because having your mouth shut, it's a hard thing to go through, what it sounds like at least, and I'm sure that would take a little toll on your mental health there as well. So would you say that brought any inspiration to it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main inspiration was when I was in grade 9. We lost a close family friend, Wes Cameron, to suicide. So that was, something we dealt with, as a family, and it was definitely, the reason why mental health was important to me and stuff like that. And then obviously, like I said, I guess through each one of my years in Guelph, and I think even leading up to my time in Guelph, there's all kinds of different adversities and stuff like that that you deal with. Yeah, one for sure was breaking my jaw and kind of dealing with a big injury and stuff like that, and getting back. And obviously another one was not playing so much in my first year. And my third year was kind of, we weren't a great team. We had a lot of guys like quitting the team, and asking for trades and stuff like that, and just sort of dealing with, in the span of 2 years, being like the best team in the country to the worst team in the country. So, there's something, I guess, going on every year, and something that I dealt with too, that, when I was talking to the kids or giving my presentation, I'd, sort of break down, I guess, my career, and something that happened within each year, and talk about it and how I dealt with it and stuff like that, and kind of go from there. So
awesome. Yeah.
Let's jump into the ball hockey tournament, how that all started. Like I said, I did it last year, and that was pretty awesome. You had obviously some guys from the Guelph Storm obviously supporting you, and the OHL Cup, the Robertson Cup, I think it's called. That was there too. What was your idea behind starting that, and then what's your reaction to the success it's had?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the main idea was, road hockey was something that it's fun, and I think everyone does and loves to do it. For me, it was a good chance for us to have, kind of like a reunion, and bring a lot of old teammates and newer future teammates into, I guess a setting where, we're having a lot of fun and hanging out for the day. So it was a cool opportunity just to, see some guys that you hadn't seen in a long time, and also, like I said, have some fun, raise some money for mental health. I think, from our first year of doing it, and we did a pretty good job that first year, but to our third year, which was last summer, we learned a lot about it. We kind of learned, the best ways to raise as much money as we could, and still make it a really great event. And, it was a lot of fun doing that. And I know the guys that would come out would love it. And I think the kids that would come play, and, there'd be a ton of Storm guys or other junior guys that were hanging out for the day. So it was a pretty cool opportunity for like fans to come and hang out, and, in a setting that, you haven't maybe seen them on the ice in a few months or in a while. So it was cool to catch up, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm pretty bummed that we're not having it this year, but we'll definitely schedule them for next year, and hopefully by that time we can make it happen and make it bigger than ever before.
And how do you see your charity growing in the future? Like the events you've put on so far have been awesome and people have loved them already. But would you be able to share any ideas that you're thinking of doing or?
No, I mean for us, we're kind of we're in a bit of a day by day right now. Like we're trying to figure out some ideas just for stuff to do while this sort of quarantine or whatever is still going on. So like the video game at child tournament was pretty cool. I think we're looking at some new merch to release and some custom T-shirts from a few of the ambassadors that we have, and kind of do a bit of a some T-shirt sales and stuff like that to raise some money. We're gonna look into that. So that's, I'd say, kind of what we're working on right now. But other than that, I mean, we're supposed to have a golf tournament in July, but obviously we'll see where we're at, kind of in the next few weeks, and we'll have to make a decision on that soon. But like I said, if it doesn't happen, then we'll just start planning for next year in a time that hopefully everything's cleared up, and we it takes a long time. So I mean, we could cancel the golf tournament tomorrow. If we did, then we would start working on it for next year, the day after. So that's one thing I've definitely learned from trying to put on events. You have to start pretty early, and it's a bit of a process to get everything together and sort of plan everything out. So there's lots for us to do in the meantime, I guess, but for now we've been brainstorming some ideas for stuff to do that we can do it quick and do it obviously with everything that's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
And if you ever need anything too, as we grow as well, we'd be honored to be able to help promote any event you want to take on or anything. That would be really cool.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We need all the help we can get. So.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap everything up. Obviously, it's so cool how you turn the negatives in your life or the low points and what you learn from that into such a positive for so many people with the events and the money you raise, obviously. And had a great career, and hopefully KDL can make a run for it next year. I'm sure we'll be rooting for you and all the listeners. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, boys.
No worries. Thanks again.